of Time. Chapter 1. I pulled my head from the drippy school bus window I'd been leaning on and saw the imprint of my nose and cheek. My face was wet, and I swiped off what felt like cold tears trickling down my cheek. I wiped my fingers on my jeans. Gross. The air inside the bus was warm and nasty from the breaths and damp air of 40 other kids. At least I wasn't shivering anymore, standing outside in my flip-flops and cotton blouse, waiting for the bus to come. Sometimes it was hard to remember that even in my part of California, there could still be cold winter days. I scooted to the other side of my seat. "Hey, Theo," I called across the aisle to my best friend. He looked like he was napping and didn't answer me. Probably stayed up too late reading again. It was easier to nap up in the front than it was in the back. The yelling and pushing mob in the dank end of the long bus made that impossible. Sometimes the claustrophobia in the back would just blow up around me, and I couldn't breathe. I'd sit 3 in a row before I'd go back there. The bus lurched to another stop, letting in another bunch of kids and a wave of fresh, cold air. I realized a little 3rd grade girl was standing by my seat. She wanted in. I was older, 12, well, almost 12, so I had privileges. Without a word, I just moved my knees to make her cross over me to the window side. I didn't mean to make her trip. Colored pencils went flying when her pencil box hit the floor and popped open. Sorry, I muttered as I got down and gathered up the rolling objects from under the seats and down the aisle. Kids were laughing. I would have too. I felt like an idiot scrambling around on the floor. "You broke some of the leads," the 3rd grader complained. I ignored her. Mrs. Weston, the bus driver, gave me the evil eye before she took off again. I knew she didn't like me. She had her little pets who always sat in the first 2 rows. Everyone else got yelled at and given detentions. I wondered if I could slide over and sit by Theo while she wasn't looking. As we pulled out onto the highway, I felt a shiver of eyes looking at me. From the rear view mirror, she was daring me to move. I was uneasy, since we were tooling down the road, picking up speed. Just watch the road, I thought. The car in front of us had slowed down, and Mrs. Weston had to stop suddenly, bumping me into the back of the seat in front of me. The jolt made everyone get louder, laughing and screeching. Then we were tailgating the little red car in front of us. Sweat rolled down the window glass. I had a headache from the din. The 3rd grader was coughing on me, and Mrs. Weston was yelling at the boys in the back for moving around. I twisted around to look. Through the rear window, I could see a big white charter bus right behind us. I imagined the luxury of sitting in a big recliner with room for my stuff and a bathroom at the rear. Thinking about the bathroom made me realize I had to go, so I sighed and turned back around. Mrs. Weston was watching the mirror again. Suddenly, I didn't feel so good, and I got a funny wobble in my stomach. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, what I saw didn't make sense. The charter bus was right in front of us. It had been behind our bus. I turned around again to see if maybe there were 2 white buses. There was no charter bus behind us. It had not passed us, but there it was, suddenly in front. Mrs. Weston was finally paying attention to traffic again, but she didn't seem surprised to see the bus right in front. Maybe because she was too busy adjusting the sunshade. "Hey, what?" I started. But then everything came apart. A cement truck blew through a stop sign and smashed into the side of the white charter bus, knocking it sideways. Mrs. Weston hit the brakes for real this time, throwing me against the seat back. There was screaming and screaming, and I wished they'd stop until I realized I was screaming too. Then boom! The screech of tearing metal made me not able to think. I couldn't look away. The side of the charter bus was caved in, but it was still traveling. Chunks of metal and plastic, pieces of luggage were flying around with clouds of dust and smoke surrounding the whole catastrophe. Planets orbiting a doomed sun. Finally, like an animal that finally knows it's dead, the charter bus fell over, sliding along the road, sparks glittering from the metal, scraping the asphalt. The noise just kept on going, a deep moan from a huge sea creature, beached and dragged across the rocks. Then oncoming cars were slamming on their brakes, skidding sideways, trying to stop. Not all of them were able to. Their smashing added to the horrible sounds. I still couldn't look away, and I slammed my hand over my mouth to try to muffle my own screams. Then I caught something moving from the side of the road. The cement truck was upside down in the road ditch, but something huge was tumbling and rolling right towards the ruined bus. The cement tank! It had come loose and was going to hit the charter bus. Nothing could stop it. Nothing did. The massive oval tank hit the nose of the charter bus, rolled over it until it reached the broken section, and then it veered off and finally came to a rest, too near my school bus, right in front of the frozen Mrs. Weston. I felt sick when I saw a splotch of red on the tank. Please let it be the company logo all smeared, I thought, and not from squashed victims. Why was it taking so long for the emergency vehicles to show up? Why was everyone still just sitting there in shock, looking at the mess, trying not to? Where were the ambulances? Then Mrs. Weston got on the radio calling for help, and I realized it had been just a minute since the charter bus appeared in front of us. The kids were all dazed or crying as the emergency workers helped us off the bus to the far side of the shoulder. I realized they were trying to get us to sit down on the ground with the school bus between us and the accident. I wanted to find Theo, but the cops wanted to talk with me, find out what I saw, probably because I wasn't hysterical. It just appeared. There was a little red car in front, and then all of a sudden the charter bus was in front. I argued to the officer taking the statement, but everyone around me had blank, skeptical faces. Mrs. Weston's mouth was a thin red line, her lipstick bleeding up through her lip wrinkles. "So, it passed your bus then," said the officer. "No, that's what I'm saying. It was following us. I was watching it, but then when I turned back around, there it was. It just appeared." "Mrs. Weston?" "It passed us," she said, dismissing me with a toss of her head. "About a quarter-mile back. It passed us. The red car was long gone ahead of us when the charter bus passed us." "Did you notice anything unusual about the way the charter bus was driving? Was it speeding? Or did it cut you off?" "No, nothing. It passed us, and I was watching to make sure we had the proper distance between us when the cement truck came out of nowhere and hit it." "But you were watching us in the mirror." I felt desperate to make them know. "You couldn't have seen it. I was watching, and it didn't pass. It was just there." Mrs. Weston pressed her lips tighter. I saw malice mixed with fear in her eyes as she scowled at me. Then I understood. She couldn't admit to not watching the road. Doggedly I pressed on. "It just appeared." "Have the EMTs had a chance to check on children all over?" one of the other officers asked. They turned to look at the chattering bunch of kids waiting for another bus to come pick them up. There was debris everywhere, and I could tell no vehicle inside the circle of chaos was going to come anywhere soon. "Briefly, yes," the tall officer said. "They all seem fine, maybe a little whiplash tomorrow." "Do you think think you hit your head, Valeria?" he asked me. "Maybe, but only a little bit on the seat. It doesn't hurt." I rubbed my forehead and realized there was a bruise on it, but it made the officers nod knowingly. "Come, sit in the patrol car until we can get someone to check you out. Mrs. Weston, we appreciate your help. Let's get this accident form filled out with your witness statement. Then you can get back to your students." The officers split up, some going with my bus driver, some taking me to the patrol car. I knew no one would listen to me now. They would all just think I was suffering from a concussion or imagining things. That's the way it was. The grown-ups got the final say. The best thing was just to know when to shut up. I sat in the car listening to the calm voices of the dispatchers and policemen as they droned forth on the car radio. I leaned my head back into the blue cushioned seat and went over and over the accident. I relived each moment, at first sure of what I'd seen, and then wondering. A whisper of doubt had been offered to me. I grew less positive. Trusting my own eyes became harder. If only Theo had seen it too. But the one who could have reassured me that I was right had been dozing. It doesn't matter, I thought. What happened has happened. And that's the end of chapter 1.